Hello there, it's time for some Hearts of Iron 4, and this time we're going to be doing the Reverse Raj campaign, which is a reference to an earlier campaign I did in Empire Total War a while back. That doesn't matter. Essentially the goal is this: you have to play as the British Raj, and your main objective is to occupy the United Kingdom and give them their own Raj. Obviously there are some things in this game that will stop us from doing that. Most of all, we're actually a vassal state of the United Kingdom, so we can't even come close to attacking them at this stage, and there are all kinds of other barriers as well. But we'll work our way through them. There's the goal, the United Kingdom sitting there, ripe for the taking, and as the Raj, we do have some advantages. We have a gigantic manpower pool, we've got 500,000 troops available, and this is with volunteer-only army policies. We can make massive armies, but can we get the political situation to be such that we're even allowed to attack the United Kingdom? Can we get there? Will anyone else step in to stop us? Well, these are the things we need to navigate in the Reverse Raj campaign. I spent a good 5 minutes at the beginning of the campaign just looking through this gigantic and confusing looking focus tree. It turns out though, our focus tree is a lot simpler than it looks. This whole tree is added, by the way, by the Road to 56 mod, I think, which I am using for this playthrough. And the tree branches off a couple of times at the top, and once you've picked your branches it locks off most of the options, so we can ignore the vast majority of it. Essentially your options are going to be stay in military administration mode or try and form a democratic government within the Raj. And if you go with the democratic option, you can then choose 3 vague paths of a neutral pro-independence government, a pro-Britain collaboration government, or a good old-fashioned communist government. It turns out there are a couple of other options in that mix as well. But what I was actually looking for here was a way to become fascist, because going into this campaign, my initial plan was to be fascist and join the Axis. I thought that's going to be the easiest way to get us into a political situation where I can have war justification against the United Kingdom and just go right for them. What we aren't able to do is get war justification just through overthrowing the Raj. We can't actually get some kind of revenge casus belli, unfortunately, so we need to come up with something. We also need to sort out the economy. We have virtually no military factories and only a few civilian factories for our size. Supposedly the Raj was stealing all of our stuff, as it's wont to do, so we need to kind of put it back. You can see me here just putting it everywhere. That proves to be a bad decision, as we'll soon see. Now, I have gone down the parliamentary elections route, so we're going to be forming an Indian government beneath the Raj in some way, and we have to make a decision about which party we're going to back. I really didn't want to go communist, because I've already been communist the last 2 times I played Hearts of Iron 4. We can't go with the Union path, because that's the pro-Britain one. That won't mix well with my particular challenge run idea. So that leaves only the Indian National Congress, which is the pro-neutrality, pro-democracy, not especially useful to us route, especially because if you become a democracy you get all kinds of military weaknesses in this game. So realistically, we want to be either communist or fascist so we can conscript our gigantic population and win the war that way. So, with democracy being too weak, we're forced to bite the bullet and go communist, which happens to the best of us. Now we have this election minigame where each region is going to vote for one of these 3 parties, and there are various things we can do to try and influence the result here to make sure that we get the majority. So if the Labour Party takes over, that will be the precondition to our communist uprising against the Raj, I believe. We're limited now to only focuses that are below the Labour Party one there, so virtually all the focuses are out the window. We'll spend most of the campaign not using any focuses at all actually as a result, which is a shame. There were lots of interesting ones down the INC route on the far left where you have to become democratic, but you had to become democratic, plus going down the communist route gives you some useful options for creating your own factions and massively increasing your industrial capacity, which we sorely need. It's a bit confusing what's actually happening right now, because we're kind of playing as the Raj in that we're the military government from the Empire, but our main government focus seems to be creating this insurrectionary second government that will almost certainly kick us out the moment they get power, and possibly kill us as well. But looks like we're going along with this, so good work from the leadership for obeying my godly commands on this one. One of the focuses we could do unlocks a variety of concessions we can make to try and help ourselves in the elections, and now we're kind of choosing specific paths of the socialist subdivisions to go for. In particular, you need to decide between left comm and Stalinism that are going to be mutually exclusive. Stalinism might allow us to get into the Comintern a bit better, but I was also thinking I don't really want to be in the Comintern. I kind of still wanted to be in the Axis somehow, despite going down this path. So I thought I'll be as independent as possible, maybe stage a fascist revolution later or something. That was still what was on my mind. So I don't know what was the actual best choice there, but we are going left comm, and soon the elections are over. And we did win after all my meddling that I cut out essentially. So we've got a majority, but our government doesn't have any power, so for now that doesn't really do anything. The Raj government still is in control, but it does unlock some more focuses. We can now start throwing out some serious reforms. We're going to need to get rid of the caste system, which is giving us permanent debuffs. We can also upgrade our education system and tons of industry stuff on this path as well. We'll also want to try and drum up some war support. We're getting some right now due to me taking a focus for revolutionary fervor or something like that. We need enough war support that we can start making a military economy that will be more efficient for producing the stuff we'll need later on. Now we're going into another political phase, because now that we've got this Indian government, they're going to start rallying for independence. Basically you have this independence score that's just going up over time, and when it reaches 100, you'll be able to ask for independence. The catch is that Pakistan is also trying to become independent, and they're within the Raj's territory. So if we can get enough influence fast enough, we can become independent with Pakistan still in our borders, and Pakistan will just be absorbed into India effectively and we'll get it. Or if you don't do that, it's going to split our territory up. So we have various options we can take. Some of them are prevented by earlier decisions by the looks of things. I think also how much support you got in that election determines how fast your points are going up here. And as it happens, our points aren't actually going up that fast compared to the Muslim League or whatever the other faction was called here. So it's going to be a struggle for us to get enough influence points to hold this thing together. One upside to all of the university reforms is that we now have 5 research slots. That's quite a few. We're going to be definitely competing with the major factions for technology now. That'll be useful later on because of course we want to take on some major factions in our campaign. We're also cheekily seizing the means of production, as you might have seen there. There's this interesting setup to the focuses where you can go ahead and do full-on communist stuff even without your government holding power. But the downside is it lowers your stability. So I think I cheekily seized the means of production and maybe of something else as well, like distribution. There's production coming through. This lowers our stability in exchange for us getting the industrial benefits of doing this. I'm guessing if you waited until you actually took power and were independent and then seized it, you wouldn't get these debuffs to your stability. But I just sort of did it anyway to see what would happen. I'm not quite sure how important keeping your stability up is. As long as you're not revolting, I guess it's okay. It gives you some minor passive buffs in the background or something. As you can see, we're getting up towards independence time here, and it was actually pretty close. We needed to get 100 points while the other faction had less than 50 points in order to make Pakistan part of the new India. As it happens though, we're not quite there. I used all of the available political measures and we couldn't quite do it. So I'm guessing I needed to get a couple more provinces in the election previously in order to make the cut. Also, if we'd been going down a different political route, some of those options that I haven't used there would be available, so maybe that would help as well. Soon we're at 100, we can ask for independence. I waited around for a while trying to think of some way to get some more points, but this isn't really part of the game, so anything that's not in that menu isn't going to help you now. We eventually click the button and create this new situation. So we've got the Indian People's Republic, which is our main territory. Pakistan has split off, and also Burma has split off on the right, so we've lost quite a bit of stuff. And this is where that thing I mentioned earlier kicks in. I had built quite a few of our new factories during the last couple of in-game years in Pakistan's territory, not realizing this was going to happen. So we actually lost quite a lot of our meager gains, and we're now back to having a very weak economy for our size, which is lovely. At least we are free. We are not a vassal of the United Kingdom, and we're not in a major faction. In particular, we're not in the Allies, which is the real thing we needed to achieve. I was a bit annoyed about Pakistan though. I immediately started thinking maybe we should just invade them and take it back. We could probably beat them since we're so much bigger. Unfortunately, they've got the United Kingdom guaranteeing their independence, and we're not really ready to go to war with the Allies as a whole yet, so I was going to have to just let Pakistan have all that stuff, for now at least. Our next goal is to research as much stuff as possible and gradually build an economy that can use it. We have to make another political decision here. You can go down the international theory route or the Soviet-style route, so perhaps that was another chance to get in with Stalin and enter the Comintern. But we're going down the full theory route, so we're going to be our own thing. We have the option though to institute collectivism, which is quite useful for us because we have this gigantic debuff. It's something like minus 50% recruitable population because everybody's working on farms. So we can slightly reduce the number of people on the farms with a bit of shenanigans. That will reduce our stability as well. And I figured maybe that's worth it. It's hard to say because while it's just increasing the amount of people who are recruitable, it doesn't straight up say this will give you X many extra possible recruits at the moment or something like that. I went for it and it turned out to be pretty good. We got something like 500,000 extra recruitable soldiers, and there's certainly stuff we can do with 500,000 extra soldiers, so hopefully that will pay off in the long run. Then we go and grab the workplace democracy focus, which will increase our production capabilities, although only by a percentage amount, and right now our production capabilities are so low that getting a percentage increase to your efficiency isn't actually going to do very much. So we're desperately in need of military factories and kind of civilian factories, in that those are the things that build military factories. Not sure what the best build order really is here. Looks like I'm deciding to throw in some fuel tanks as well. I think I noticed we started losing fuel when my army was training or something, so we have basically no fuel capacity at the moment. While all that was going on, I somewhat pointlessly started justifying a war on the United Kingdom. While I've played this game twice now, in both of those campaigns, I always just got drawn into other people's wars, so one thing I didn't really know how to do is to just start a war with somebody else. So I'm making this war justification. I actually won't be able to use that because I later learned they expire and we're not ready to do it, so I should have done it much later. We have now started establishing a Revolutionary Guard though, which will build up our war support, which is already also quite high. So we're going to be able to go into the military economies soon. Now we have to make another decision. We are in the unfortunate circumstance where the nobility control a lot of our territory, which is at odds with our left comm ideals. So we can either do concessions to somehow integrate them, or we can say no compromises, and it sort of alludes to what's going to happen in this tooltip by saying it will provide ample opportunity for army experience. So it sounds like something's going to go down if you pick that option. Well, I did pick that option. As it turns out, this actually unlocks a bunch of decisions that I didn't notice, and by not taking any of those decisions, we're going to cause kind of the worst possible outcome of all this. First, I was just sitting there looking at everything being demilitarized. All of the noble territory is now a demilitarized zone, which turns out stops you from using the military factories there, further stymieing our already trash production. I came here to look at the tooltip, and I was like, hey, this didn't say it was going to take away my military factories, but maybe that's what it means when it says demilitarized zone. I thought it just meant you can't walk your troops there, which doesn't matter, although that is also true. The other thing this does is it causes the nobles to start wanting independence, and as alluded to, there were some decisions you could take earlier that I totally missed that will stop this from happening, that I have not done obviously. So now we're going to have a bit of a situation on our hands. Hyderabad has declared independence, and pop, there's now another country in the middle of our country. Inconvenient, and of course they're going to be taking their civilian industry with them as well, so this further weakens us. They're also taking away some recruits. We need to do something about them post haste. So let's just invade them. Our army is severely lacking equipment, but their army is going to have exactly the same problem, but we'll have more bodies to throw at them essentially. We can make a quick and easy war justification by just saying we want to retake our core region. so now we have to wait a couple of months. In the meantime, we can start building up a planning bonus on their border to make the invasion easier. I've even got a few dive bombers here that can get involved in the fight. So now I just had to wait. The problem was, while I was waiting, the political situation changed a bit, and Hyderabad got its independence guaranteed by the Union of Burma. So that's the country directly to my right, meaning that when I invade Hyderabad, we're going to get invaded by these troops we can see here on our border at the same time. Seeing this, I thought, well, we can probably stop them because that area is kind of a choke point, it's kind of mountainous. I'm going to split off part of my army, since I almost certainly don't need all of this army to invade Hyderabad, who only have like 4 divisions. So we'll send some guys off and see what happens, bringing us to this point. We're ready with the justification, we'll start the war, Burma's going to be in it, but we've got a choke point set up to stop them from ever getting to Hyderabad and helping out. Meanwhile, our forces at Hyderabad should still be enough to just overrun their defences and get on in, so I was pretty confident. But in these messages that flashed past there, for like 3 frames, there was a very important message. Burma joined the Allies when the war started, so now all of the Allies have that easy casus belli in that they can be called into this Hyderabad war. Why they would care about this I don't really know, but they may just hate us enough to get involved. And what we soon see is various other countries start getting involved, and this situation devolves rapidly as half the world is now fighting to preserve Hyderabad's independence. A World War II-like thing has now started. Germany was already up to shenanigans, so a war was going on, and we're now kind of in the war, but not in the Axis. We're on their side in that us and the Axis are all mutually fighting the Allies. So this would be a great time for us to join the Axis and achieve my dream, but it's not the ideal situation, suffice to say. At least we're not, like, about to get invaded by those powers, but them being at war with us now is inconvenient because I was hoping to sort of sneak armies up to the coast of Britain before the war started, things like that. All we can do for now is the original objective that we had planned. We can storm forwards and attack Hyderabad as more war declarations roll in. We got the options to join either the Axis or the Comintern. I decided to finally live my pointless dream and join the Axis, but this turned out to be a bad idea, and that's the first time anyone's ever said that. In we go to attack Hyderabad then, now with Germany theoretically supporting us, but we are making a point of not supporting them by not joining any of the Axis's wars. So we're just in the faction for no particular reason. Hyderabad does go down pretty easy, but that's not going to be the end of this drama. What I hoped was that by securing Hyderabad, the war's contention would be gone, and now we can just ignore India again, please, for a bit. But no, the war with Burma and indeed the Allies will continue, and now because we're in the Axis, basically World War II is all about who gets to control Hyderabad now, at least as far as we're concerned. We're in this until that particular matter is settled. With the Burma situation, I figured we can easily choke point them here because we have so many troops, but we meet an old friend, the Hearts of Iron 4 supplies system. We actually can't defend this border with this many divisions because there aren't enough supplies. It's because we're in a different supply region to the rest of our country, and Burma controls most of this supply region. So technically there's like no line for supplies to get there. So all I needed to do was walk 2 areas to the left, and now we're in full supply because that area is in my supply zone where a bigger percent of the supply zone border is allied to us or something. There's a whole system for determining whether or not you can get supplies to somewhere. We can get them here, it turns out. So by defending this absolutely tiny border, we can stop the Burmese from getting anywhere into India as long as they don't invent boats. So that's that. It's time for another familiar situation, the endless defensive battle, where the AI is cycling units to continuously attack you, and you just sit there in a never-ending fight, hoping you don't get the retreat thing where if the leading units run out of organisation, the entire stack will retreat. We've also got the Bengal Famine coming in now, and we're supposed to do something about it. We have to ask somebody to help us out. and the choices are Stalin or the USA. I figured that Stalin might not help us, not only because we've been mean to him, but he is a little bit famous for not helping during famines. The thing was, I thought because we're in the same ideology group, maybe he would do it for us this time. For whatever reason, I didn't trust those damn Yanks to send us any food. So we go with that option. Turns out that was the right option because Daddy Stalin pulls through and relieves the famine in the end. Well, that's one up he has on Churchill, suffice to say. Handy, although it doesn't really do anything, it just avoids a debuff, and now we have good relations with the Soviets, but since we're in the Axis now, we're at war with them at the same time, very awkward. Now we just wait for the Hell War to in some way resolve. My vague plan was to gradually invent tanks and then push through their defences to break it out into the open again and go back for Burma. We can also theoretically do this, but not really. I can dedicate a few troops to preparing a naval invasion of their capital, but because we don't have any ships, we can't get naval control of that tiny route, which means it'll never allow us to launch ships and do that, so that preparation will just last forever. We can make level 1 destroyers, but we only have one dockyard, so it makes them super slowly. It would take years to get one ship for us, unfortunately. So really just nothing happened there. Nothing much happened in the Choke Point War either. We traded extremely efficiently. We lost like 6,000 troops and killed like 100,000 between Burma, British Malaya and New Zealand, who were all trying to break through on this front. That went pretty well. I think the enemy had no non-infantry units, so they had no artillery or anything like that when they were attacking, so our units did very well against them. Here's the real kicker though. While all that was happening, something bad was happening to our new allies over in Europe. Germany's getting absolutely annihilated by the Allies, so our support there is going to disappear for what it was worth. Looks like they didn't get Poland. Maybe the Soviet Union didn't help them enough or something, not quite sure what's going on over there. We are on non-historical focuses, so slightly unusual things will happen, and it looks like Germany is going down the pan. That doesn't necessarily matter from our point of view, but we'll see it proves to be inconvenient. There are also several wars going on at the same time, so the whole World War II diplomacy has been mixed up. We seem to somehow be involved in all of these wars, meaning a lot of countries have to attack us now as a result of the Hyderabad drama for some reason. I guess us joining the Axis is also a bit of drama. And this all came to bite me. Without me even realising, I was just staring here at our death front, waiting for tanks to show up. I noticed our resources were getting a bit low, and I eventually zoomed the camera out and realised, oh, something is actually going on down there. It even took me a few seconds to notice. It looks like southern India is in trouble. Various allied nations are attacking. Hyderabad is back down there and are reforming their little country. We're in enormous trouble. I did send troops to try and fight this, but rapidly just the entire Allied force came over to deal with this situation. So we got absolutely annihilated. The war ended, but it's not that bad. We're still here because that whole thing was just about Hyderabad, so all they did is put Hyderabad back. So I guess that's annoying, but not that bad. The real annoying aspect was that they also changed our government type while they were here. We're now a democracy and we're in the Allies, so that's pretty inconvenient. We're as far away from invading the United Kingdom as we can get politically now, meaning that for all intents and purposes the Reverse Raj challenge has been failed. We just became another generic nation in the Allies. Who cares about that? We didn't even get revenge. I came over to the United Kingdom thinking maybe we can just leave the Allies immediately. The main thing stopping me from doing that is that I can't click on the United Kingdom without selecting an airbase and going into air mode. Very frustrating. Then we do leave the Allies just right away, so at least that now didn't happen. But that's only a minor victory. We need to have another communist revolution somehow, maybe get in with a Comintern and take over the United Kingdom during a World War III context or something like that. But really, I figured my best option is going to be to just start the game again at this stage. So this is sneakily a part 0 campaign episode again. That was just my failed attempt to begin. One thing I thought you might be able to do now that we've been switched to a democracy is go down some of the other focus trees that rely on that. but because we didn't support democracy back in the day, we're not allowed to do any of the other stuff, which is unfortunate. So yes, there's not much we can do now. I'm going to start again and use the lessons learned to make things go better, and I can tell you now they do go better having already done it. So the real start of the Reverse Raj campaign is going to be in part 2. Join me for that.